there are a lot of manipulations going on between incarnations.
I interviewed a person from the Monroe Institute, the Gateway Project, and he's been astral traveling for many years. And he basically spoke about that we are a fractal representation of the whole, the oneness. And so in other words, we are that. And so what we mustn't do is the mistake we make on this planet is we're constantly looking outwards at the projection, you know, a savior or a friend or a Jesus figure, whatever. And what he said is no. When you pass, you don't make the same mistake where you go outwards, out into a tunnel, out to a figure, a savior or a family member. According to him, it's all synthetic and none of it is real. He said what you do is you literally go inwards and basically connect with this field of where you're completely one with everything and you're not separate from anything, so you don't want anything either. You know, that whole idea of wanting something is separation consciousness, which is very much related to the duality reality that we experience here on Earth. I believe that there's a lot of sound frequency that is being, you know, that we're bombarded with, that keeps us in that way of thinking, and that it's literally a matter of having a collective awakening. The more people awaken, the awakening basically activates an energy of who you are, and if that happens to multiple people in large groups, those sound waves don't stand a chance, or whatever any other manipulative system that's in place will be pushed out, will be broken.
Okay, so Christianne van Wijk, welcome to True Theory podcast. Greetings from Poland.
Oh, thank you, my beloved Poland. I love it so much.
I found out that you have apparently some roots in Poland, some ancestors.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
I do, and I had a boyfriend in 1998 who was Polish, and that's how I ended up in Poland, and I had the time of my life.
Oh no, a lot has changed since 1998.
Oh, has it? Yeah. Has it? Really? No, for the better or not?
I think it's for the better.
Okay.
You know, because I actually moved out from Poland in 2004 and came back around 2020. So it's just completely different universe. I had like 2 years where I had problems to adjust.
Really?
Again. Yeah, because I was so shocked how everything is changed, you know?
Modernized.
Everything, mentality of people, you know, a lot of foreigners, people are way more polite. I remember growing up, things were rough. A lot of hooligans, a lot of street fights, a lot of things like that.
Yeah.
And now it's
I was at the tail end. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I was at the tail end of the old communist, you know, exactly. The communist regime had ended for about 10 years when I was there, and you still had the remnants of that quite clearly. You know, a lot of the old buildings, the old communist buildings were still there. But what I remember mostly is the absolute warmth and kindness of the Polish people.
Oh, that's nice.
True.
Okay. And what city did you visit? Do you remember?
I went to Gdynia, Warsaw, Gdansk.
Okay, so all the bigger cities.
Yeah, and I went to the countryside as well. I don't actually quite remember where I was in the countryside. It was very beautiful, very green forests, lush, near Gdynia in the north.
Yeah, these are nice areas. From south, Cracovia. It's like a popular place.
Yeah.
Yeah, and funny because, I actually was interviewed by you 5 years ago or 6 years ago. Was a very short one. I was very tired that day, so I think
Were
I,
you?
I was sleeping. We had to postpone. But that's how I kind of learned about your work. And it was
Mm-hmm.
interesting because I remember I was visualizing doing some interviews, and then you reached out or through a friend in common or something, so it was like manifestation or something, because I was doing some
Yeah,
visualizations, and then you invited me to appear in Mind the Matrix second
yeah, yeah.
part.
The series, yeah.
And we had Mind the Matrix first part on our website embedded from YouTube. So that's kind of resonated because I talk about the Matrix a lot and
Mm-hmm.
nature of reality. And now kind of roles change. You've been doing a lot of work over the years, and we're gonna hear a little bit about you today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was already working obviously on the whole Matrix story already for, well, I think in 2009 I made a film about 2012 and the upcoming changes. So I was already doing all that kind of work before, but I was always a lot more comfortable behind the camera, and I've been doing a lot more in front of the camera, interviews and presenting for Iconic, etc.
Yeah, and so what do you think about this whole shift? You've been interested in this topic of shift 2012 and, moving into the new age, whatever you want to call it. How do you look at it now after what we've been experiencing over the last 10 years or 15 years?
I would say it's a work in progress. So it's like the peeling of the layers of an onion. And so you think you're there, you think something major has just happened, and that's only just one layer coming off. And I've realized that that's been ongoing all this time, more and more layers coming off, and especially layers of programming where you think you're awake, you think you've like let go of your program, but you find out you're still super programmed. And this is really funny when people say, I'm awake, and David Icke always says awakening, because it's such a process. And when you realize that humanity has been and is under mass mind control, that means you too. It means all of us that were raised in a culture of whatever country. Each country has a different kind of set of program. There's crossovers, but each country has its own signature as well of the way that people behave and think and what their belief systems are. But at the end of the day, all humans are bloody programmed, So it's still ongoing. Every time I think now I'm really, really getting it, another layer comes off.
Yeah, I have the same. I mean, I can notice that there is a great shift going on. I think in the world, I see random people talking about topics that probably you would not hear them talking about 10, 20 years ago, which is good. It's a good
Mm-hmm.
sign. But
Mm-hmm.
still, when I think about it, like I believe that vast majority of people really know nothing about nature of reality, to be honest.
100%.
But there is trend and things are moving, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing on the one hand, and on the other hand, there is a slight issue, and that is that there are multiple traps awaiting anyone who embarks on the awakening process. So I think it's absolutely vital that no matter where you're at in this process, you always keep questioning, and you never, have this moment where you say, okay, I've got it now, I don't have to do anything anymore, because it keeps shifting, and nature of reality keeps showing more elements and facets on the kaleidoscope. So I see a lot of people getting trapped in things, either I'm awake or in new age thought that kind of justifies the suffering on this planet, when I don't think we should have any justification for that.
Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit more about these traps? Like a lot of people throw this new age thing because it's, for me, I don't know, I think this term has bad connotations, but we are moving through the new age, right? It's just, I guess the idea is to not think everything's just going to be bliss and wait for whatever, right? This is one of the traps, right?
Yeah, one of the traps. Yeah, you've got the trap, of course, of externalization, where you're waiting for a savior. So you think that this ascension process or this evolutionary process involves, a savior that's coming to do it for us. So that's one aspect, and that can take form in the shape of a Jesus that comes back. Like there's been a major move suddenly back to religion. I don't know if you've noticed that. So people then get stuck in like a reality tunnel, because the truth suits them at that moment. But what they don't understand is that they are a fractal representation of the all that is. So in other words, whatever somebody externally seems to have is something that we have ourselves too. And that's what they don't want you to find out. So I guess there's that aspect. And then the other aspect of a trap is where, and that's especially in the New Age scene, is where people justify the suffering that's happening as part of we're here to learn lessons, and that everything that happens was pre-agreed, and that there's always a justification for the horrendous suffering we see around us. And that to me is a trap. Because in that sense, we're almost agreeing to it and taking too much almost accountability for things when, you don't stand a chance here when you come to this planet, because again, I come back to the programming. We're being programmed in such a way that we're never really given the chance to fully awaken, to really truly awaken to what we are. And so it's very easy for us to have belief systems imposed on us, and we buy into them without truly questioning from the core of our being.
Yeah, and I think, even as someone who's been interested in spiritual topics and exploring them for more than 20 years now, I started learning new things in recent years that really shifted my thinking a lot about my views, let's say, in the past. And now I can see a lot of people who think they're, into spirituality and these types of topics, and they might still fall into traps that, they don't necessarily understand. So
yeah, and you see, the thing is, that's fine and totally understandable, and I have no judgment about that. The thing that bothers me is when there is a certain I know it all attitude, which suddenly everyone's a guru, suddenly everyone's a shaman, and when you come with new information or new knowledge, or they encounter new knowledge, they almost double down on their stance so that they don't lose face, instead of thinking, okay, I'm not a guru or a shaman, I'm also in process, like we all are.
Yeah, definitely. You constantly need to be learning new things and be open to hear new points of perspective.
Yeah, and I
never
even
know, right?
Yeah, and I even think the word learning is already like, yes, learning, but at the same time, I don't know if that's the same for you, where when you realize something, there's almost a part of you that knows that you've always known it. Like so that is just like a remembering of something. It doesn't feel like, oh, I never knew this. Like these new insights are almost making so much sense that it feels like it was always there, but it just had to unravel. The shells just had to come off. Does that make sense?
Okay, so I was just saying that for me, whenever I'm learning something new, let's say about nature of reality, a lot of the things seem to be more like reminding myself things, because they just click, make sense. And it's been like that since my first experiences, when I was like 19, 20, I started having all these thoughts about nature of reality, tarot cards, past lives, things like that. And for me, I could understand these things without reading anything about it. So it is like a memory in a way. And then I learned that my friends completely didn't know anything about these things, or, stuff like that. Did you have these types of experiences?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it started already from a young age. I remember even when I was about 7 years old, I really, because I came from an atheist family, so I really missed having a spiritual connection with something. And so I said to my parents that I wanted to go to church, and they were like, "What?" And so we found a church near me, and I would go on a Sunday morning. I would go on my bicycle at 7 years old to this church. But going there, I was like, this is not where I want to be. This is not how I remember it. You know, it bored me to tears, and it wasn't at all the connection I was looking for. So I remember being quite disappointed. And then when I was about 13, I remember grabbing a deck of playing cards, and two friends of my first year of high school were at my house in my bedroom, and I was just laying these cards and doing readings for them. And this is back in 1986. And I had no connection ever with tarot. Didn't even know what it was, but I do know that just by looking at the cards, I was, getting information on them. And then I don't know if you've ever heard of this book called Seth Speaks, by Jane Roberts.
It's like some channeling of stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. What about
I
it?
found that when I was about 18 or something, and I remember just being absolutely bowled over by it, because it was like, yes, of course, the unseen. There was always a deep fascination with the unseen. So I was already, into it from a young age, even though my environment was not reflecting that at all. Nobody or nothing in my environment did anything with spirituality. And I guess in a way, that was a good upbringing for me, to be very earthy and here. But of course, your path will always be your path, and it will always start unfolding in all sorts of strange ways, as it did for me as well.
Yeah, and one thing I think we should talk more about today, which to be honest, I have not watched your series, The Great Unknown, yet, but I gonna check it out, and I wanna know maybe a little bit about like what made you decide to focus on the topic of reincarnation, and yeah, let's start here, because this is I have some interesting information about this topic, which I think not a lot of people know about, and
Ooh.
it's been something I've been learning lately. But let's start with what made you decide to focus on this movie.
Right. So you were asking about the theme of reincarnation
I
and
mean,
death.
yeah, what made you decide to focus on this topic?
Yeah. Well, basically I'm obsessed with this topic. To be honest, I'm completely, I've always been into it, because with the question of who are we, what are we doing here, obviously connected with that is what happens after we die. What are we after we die? And there's so many aspects of that. What's multidimensionality? What are we really in the essence? So it's been an obsession of mine for years and years and years. But back in December 2023, somebody close to us passed away at a young age. And I was there when it happened. And while I was observing what was going on with this person leaving the planet, I suddenly was like, this person was my age. I was like, whoa, what happened? Because this was such a big personality. So one moment there's this big personality, and the next it's gone. And even though I'd looked into the theme of death already so much and for so many years, when it comes so close and it hits you emotionally, yeah, it just opened a whole new field of research for me. And I thought, well, I can research this for myself, but I'm a filmmaker, so I might as well document me researching it. It's like someone like David Icke, who's a writer. He researches something and puts it in writing. So that's what I decided to do, and it was meant to be a film. But as I started the process, and I spoke to so many incredible people, it became a 4-part series. So it's about, you know, around an hour each episode. And I came to the conclusion that, you know, this whole idea of that reincarnation is a positive thing. I really realized that I'm not so sure now. And that already started in 2010 when I did my ayahuasca experience. And I was shown the synthetic reincarnation cycle that just kept humans keeping on looping back and up and down, up and down. And already then I was shown, there's some kind of trap going on. And in my series, I did, you know, realize that that's probably very likely.
Okay, so this is the topic I wanted to mention. So, you know, I basically discovered this relatively unknown regressive hypnosis technique called Grifasi method, which is basically it's called regressive hypnosis, but you don't have to be hypnotized because we work with the psychic. So 2 people run the session, and let's say if you are not susceptible to hypnosis, it doesn't really matter because the psychic will try to tap into your you know, soul level or past lives or whatever the situation needs to be tapped into, right?
Yeah.
And there is this method helped me like 2.5 years ago. I had etheric implants installed on my auric field, which I knew about because I feel my aura. And I knew exactly when I got them installed and things like that. I was experimenting a lot with rituals and things like that, and turned out that some of these manifestation rituals came with specific price, you know. So I was learning through my experience about these things for a couple of years, and I, when I had thing attached to my back, which is like I feel my auric field, you know, I had my Kundalini awakening like more than 15 years ago. So I feel my aura, I feel my chakras, things like that. And I knew I had something on my shoulder. And finally, I found a method that helped me to release that, which was like really shocking because I couldn't do it for over 2 years. And I was trying a lot of techniques. And what happens in this situation is that when you have any kind of etheric devices attached to your aura, like it's like an operation. So after it was removed, like first for 2 months, I had these electric shocks on my back all the time. And I was weak for a whole week because it's like after an operation, right? It's like basically you had a hole in your auric field. And there was a device, etheric device attached that was supposedly sucking the energy or something, you know?
Yeah,
so first I was weak, and then I got like this amazing, you know, energy up and everything. And I was really shocked with this whole experience that I became so interested in this method that I decided I need to learn it myself. So finally, you know, I finished course like a couple of months ago. I was studying the technique, and there's, you know, a lot of really interesting stuff that this technique works on. But one of the things that the people, let's say, that started the method discovered is that there are a lot of manipulations going on between incarnations. And, you know, what's happening is that very often after someone dies, you know, the soul, for example, meets some spirit guides or some kind of ancestors, whatever, or some council that will tell you, you got to go back to Earth because you got to repay the karma or something like that.
Yeah.
And from the work that, you know, this system, the people behind it were doing over the years, they learned, we're learning this, that a lot of incarnations are manipulated. And we have techniques to try to figure out who are the spirit guides, let's say, because very often they are not your ancestors or whatever. They're reptilians or others, they use some kind of holographic system to appear as someone you know. Another thing is, so what happens is that people agree and sign contracts in between lifetimes, creating some kind of soul plan for their lives, which often is completely manipulated. So they become the tool for negative entities, either, you know, energy wise, like they create some emotions, or they're going to be used for some kind of reasons on earth and whatever. And honestly, the more I learned about it, the more I started seeing it with some people I know. It's just incredible. Like, some people had like apparently 100 incarnations manipulated. You go out, they again try to catch you. What supposedly happens, I'm still learning this stuff, but I definitely I'm convinced this is true now. Is that, for example, this whole thing with the tunnel, seeing the light, and supposedly this is a fake construct. That what happens is sometimes, you know, the memories are not coming back so quickly after someone passes away, and that's why they use some kind of technique to keep you still numb, right, before you start reminding yourself. And you know, the tunnel thing is just to keep you kind of numb, and then go through the contracts, you know, agreements on your next incarnation, blah blah blah, which is manipulated. And you know, very often the incarnation can be like partially yours choice and partially the tricks, and it's most of the time it's around you know, just trying to trick you that you have to repay some karma, you know, you gotta suffer a lot, things like that. So I don't know, did you discover anything like that during your
exactly
work?
What you just said. Exactly what you said. And also, you know, when they talk, when you listen to the Tibetan philosophies, they speak about the wheel of samsara, right? I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so that, you know, you pass away and you enter a wheel. I see that as a spiral back down into another incarnation. And that tunnel is also like a spiral. And you know, people have asked, well, if that's the case, then where do I go then? If I'm not meant to go into the tunnel, which is a synthetic holographic, well, in my opinion, representation, if I'm not supposed to do that, then where do I go? And it's a question I got a lot after the series. And I found I wasn't really able to give an answer that satisfied me until last week. I interviewed a person from the Monroe Institute, the Gateway Project. And he's been astral traveling for many, many, many years. And he, to me, is the most down-to-earth guy I've spoken to when it comes to all of this. And he said something that so resonated with me and that had come up already for me. Like, what do you do then? And he basically spoke about that we are a fractal representation of the whole, the oneness. And so, in other words, we are that. And so what we mustn't do is the mistake we make on this planet is we're constantly looking outwards at the projection, you know, a savior or a friend or a Jesus figure, whatever. And what he said is no. When you pass, you don't make the same mistake where you go outwards, out into a tunnel, out to a figure, a savior or a family member. According to him, it's all synthetic and none of it is real. He said, what you do is you literally go inwards. Now you can say, well, I don't have a body anymore, so what does it mean going inwards? But inwards into your consciousness. And that basically funnels you into a different direction. It funnels you inwards, which is it's a paradox, because it's inwards, but it's out. You go out, basically. By going inwards, you go out. By going outwards, you go back in. That's the paradox of the whole thing.
Yeah, sometimes apparently these traps look like, whatever the belief system you had. Let's say you believed in
100%.
Jesus, the other person believed in Muhammad, whatever. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna see something related to whatever the belief you had. But one of the ways that we use, let's say, techniques we use to try to figure out if you're dealing with some kind of beings that are pretending to be someone else
Mm-hmm.
is that you look them in the eyes and you try to touch them, because like if they have some kind of holographic projection, you touch them, like you're normally gonna feel the different texture of the skin or scales or whatever.
Yeah.
And the eyes typically are difficult to cover properly, so you're gonna see something's wrong in the eyes when you are there, and when you touch the skin, you're probably gonna feel that this is not the skin that they have. So this is like one of these two things we check always, who is dealing,
Yes.
And another thing is that because everything is always based on your free will, whenever you are in your own kind of and they cannot do anything without your agreement. That's the free will principle is kind of working. So you can request their true identity, their true form. Whenever you deal with anyone there,
Great advice.
you
Yeah.
can say, show me your true identity or true form. And that's why they also try to keep you numb straight away, because
Yes.
before you remember properly things, they try to like block it.
Yeah.
But these are some of the techniques we use when we use the psychic to tap into the scene, because we can move into backwards in time, into like do remote viewing into what's happened between the lifetimes and change the contracts there. So this is some of the stuff that we are doing now with this technique.
Yeah. And I resonate with everything you say. And this person that I interviewed also said, you do have some time to choose. So it doesn't mean upon death you have to go straight inwards. You can observe this 360 reality you just in, but whether you engage with it, because as soon as you start engaging with it, they can use methods like what you just said: guilt, shame, regret, all these things that attach you to this earth. Things that are unfinished. They'll make you feel like you've not finished something. So, oh, you left these people behind, and they're relying on you to for their freedom, for their liberation. They're relying on you coming back to make it, to make things right again. And if you haven't dealt with your guilt and your shame and all of that stuff, then it will be very easy to use the emotional lure to pull you back into agreeing to another lifetime. So it's very important that things like, and they talk about this in the Tibetan tradition, things like lust and greed and spiritual hunger and regret, shame, all of those aspects that still make you feel like you have unfinished business, that you deal with that in while you're alive. And this is why it's so utterly important to awaken in this life and to deal with these subjects thoroughly. In fact, it's my belief that it should be prioritized over anything else. To deal with that first. And you may think, well, but shouldn't I get married and have babies and blah blah. Those are automatic programs. It's far more important to fully spend all your attention on looking at where am I still hooked in. And you described it so beautifully, when you talked about these energetic hooks. They're very real. These energetic hooks, you may not see them with your eyes in this visual spectrum, but they're very real. You really get hooked in. And emotions are the perfect way of doing it, as well as sexual energy. And you see a lot of extreme sexual energy nowadays, even worse than ever in this society, which is also a major hook to hook you in to the to lust, and to wanting the pleasures of this earth, when really out of body you don't need any of that. If you've dealt with that, you can let go of that and become and basically connect with this field of where you're completely one with everything, and you're not separate from anything, so you don't want anything either. You know, that whole idea of wanting something is separation consciousness, which is very much related to the duality reality that we experience here on Earth.
Yeah, I think you know, all the emotions you described, like greed, lust, whatever, you know, all the low vibrational emotions. This, based on what you know, I know it's like the food for all of these negative beings. And sexual energy very often is used in all sorts of ways because, you know, it's very powerful. Our sexual energy can be used, for example, to create life. Like we learned about etheric pregnancy, which are manipulated as well, where you know, the sexual energy is used to create hybrids of all sorts, or even women. For example, in physical body, a woman cannot get pregnant, but what happens when we check is that she has etheric pregnancy with some kind of reptilian whatever, which also was by agreement that she doesn't know on a conscious level.
Mm-hmm.
And the, you know, sexual energy is being harvested through all sorts of ways. So, but the thing is, like with these low vibrational emotions, like anything like greed, lust, fear, you know, anger, whatever, this is what they are attracted to. So if you are trying to not have this throughout your life, you're less likely probably to be a target, I guess, because, you know, you're not calling them in a way, I think.
Yeah, the way I look at that is slightly, yes, slightly deviating from that. And that is that I think one of the big new age mistakes is abstinence, where people go full blown only healthy food, or full blown only this or only that. I don't think that that's where the solution lies. I think the solution lies in always finding a balance, because we are in a human body and we have human needs. So they will be there, and the denying of it will only create a shadow around us. So I do think that everything should be okay, as long as you know within yourself when you go out of balance. It's that beautiful 0 point that gets us out of this trap. You know, got positively charged, negatively charged, duality. I think this matrix is held together by electricity. You know, it's literally, we are the conductors basically of this plus and minus energy, and any direction out of balance pulls you back into it. So, you know, I see a lot of people, like I just said, you know, that are straight edge into only the healthy, or only the good, or only vibing high, you know, and all of that. It's not sustainable. I've allowed myself to just be part of everything and engage with everything, but in a very subtle, balanced way. I can't say I always do that, but I'm making it a very big focus of my life to just be here, you know, when in Rome, do as the Romans kind of thing, you know. So I do navigate through it as long as I'm fully conscious of it and don't go out into extremes, because I think that's where the danger lies, unconsciousness and not knowing when you've gone out of balance.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. I think one of the big things about being here is to try to be in balance, because it's hard to be perfect, let's say, because everything you touch is out of balance in a way. So the whole idea is that you have to try to like use whatever you have here, but still not allow it to take you over in a way. Like even like things like AI, whatever, these tools that might be very negative, like if you try to use them to some extent, you know, they can be very useful as well. And it's actually, the funny thing is, the balance part is something that came to me when I was doing my mushroom ceremonies, and I was shown this thing about balance. So for example, I was being given examples of things like a bodybuilder who is trying to be so perfect that starts taking steroids, and, you know, bones are breaking and things like that. So this is like going to extreme with health, let's say, whatever, right? So this is something that I also kind of realized, you know, that this is the key here. It's to be, like you said, in balance. Yeah, it's
Yeah, and
interesting.
when you go out of balance, you see so much illness. That to me is a sign
Yeah.
of being out of balance. The body knows exactly how to keep itself in balance, but we keep on just following these fads and just focusing on things that are short-term solutions on things, and we don't understand how much it puts us out of balance, including mindsets. Like any mindset that's out of balance will eventually somatize into illness in the body. A lot of the time when people focus on, oh, if I take those supplements and I eat that food, my illness will go. Well, yeah, it can temporarily, but if you don't change the mindset that caused it in the first place, it will re-emerge again at some point, this illness. So again, with physical health, same thing.
Yeah, if you look at, let's say, your physical health, you go out of balance, your immunity is weakened, and suddenly you become food for all the negative parasites and whatever, fungi, bacteria, etc., viruses. And it's the same with the mind, right? Because as above, so below. So like all the greed and lust, all the things in your mind, they attract these negative beings as well, right? So it's kind of, you have the balance for the physical aspects and for the mental, which are also, these cause parasites to feed and these cause parasites to feed, but different types
but
of
also the
parasites.
focus on just positive does the same thing, because it's food for deception. Because once people have focused on that, it's very easy to deceive them into, even in the sense of, oh, making you feel like really self-righteous and really like, oh, I'm only doing the right thing. It's all out of balance. So it's all making you pray for anything that wants to get energy out of you.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta be streetwise here, like
That's right. That's right.
be the kind of walk the spiritual path, but also don't allow to whatever kick someone to kick your ass, because if you're too kind, too good, like everyone will take advantage of you, right? So it's,
well, that's another thing, the whole love and light thing, vibe high, and love is the only thing. Yes, true. But if you're not streetwise alongside it, and you're being too no boundaries set up, or only seeing the good. I mean, I've made that mistake myself in the past, where with ex-partners I only sold the good, I only saw the potential, and then their behavior was completely the opposite, and I kept on finding excuses for it. Well, it's a hard lesson, and it's good to become streetwise about that and not make that mistake to your own detriment.
Yeah. And is there any topic like on your mind apart from reincarnation lately, or something maybe for the future, whatever, like something that you are exploring or maybe focusing on at the moment, or I don't know, something that you found really interesting?
Yeah, lots of things. I mean, I've got a list of films for the next few years that are going to be hopefully made, and yeah, I don't know which one to really go into at the moment, because I do think this whole subject, what we're talking about now, it's the kind of subject that is, it's the key subject. It's the key subject of really finding out who we are, what we're doing here, and how we get out of here. Even if we decide later we do want to come here, it has to be a sovereign decision from the spirit of who we truly are, and not something that we're manipulated into. And so I mean, we could talk about that subject a lot more, and there's a lot more layers to it.
I think there is also another element that I believe in. For example, let's say, about the law of one, the raw material, which was channeled.
Yeah.
So they talk about the evolution of the soul, that basically like the soul evolves and it polarizes itself. And what happens is that when you reach fourth density level, third density, you are at the peak of third density, which was exactly now. Like we are literally finished third density now, and I think the split, I've been getting a lot of insights for years about the the timelines, the densities and things like that. And what happens is that depending on how you polarize yourself, so through service to self or service to others path, every action you do, like you go out of balance too much in one way or the other, like you become more plus than minus, let's say 49 plus 51 minus, or the other way around, right? You can kind of shift polarity of your soul, let's say. They talk about this path, and basically, you become compatible with bodies once you go through like this big shift, which is between third and fourth density. And this is what the Mayans talk about, the great shift. In the Bible they talk about the judgment. Like all these different cultures supposedly mention this transition. And if you look at even what's happening now, like because it's like you go to the peak of the old world, and there is a birth of the new world. And what we have now, which is the birth of AI, which is the birth of like the synthetic consciousness. I think this is the moment of transition, because in a way, like, the way we've been living from ego for thousands of years, the ego creates synthetic reality, which is, fake. And then when you get to the peak of transition, there is a birth of consciousness, but the consciousness is synthetic, because this is the path we took over the last few thousand years. So, but the idea here is that, you polarize yourself when you go through, you incarnate until supposedly the higher self level, which is like, when you are equally balanced between love and wisdom, let's say, if you decide to take the positive path, because that's the kind of source qualities, right? Like the love and wisdom. Yes. And in a way, like the higher self is like the source, but still having personality, right? It's like you as the source. So
it's still a form of individualization.
Yeah, like the source individualized. So I honestly, like, based on everything I've looked into and my experiences, I think there is a lot of truth to this path. So the idea is that the soul incarnates, polarizes either one way or the other, but there is a point where it's like entering adulthood, right? Entering 4D, 5D, and then you decide what kind of adult you want to be. So you can be positive or negative, and then you can either incarnate into positive bodies because that's what you resonate with, or negative. And let's say if you're extremely polarized into negative, you end up incarnating as reptilians, for example, stuff like that, So I think this, and when I was doing my psychedelic trips, I saw myself in these bodies, some of them really hardcore, negative ones.
Yeah.
And I was shown, like, lifetimes on Earth where I was like killing people and things like that. And I think this is another trap in a way, like this whole idea of polarizing yourself one way or another. I don't know, because that can, you in a way you resonate with the types of bodies, right? You can incarnate into based on who you've been before.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I resonate a lot with the sentence that David Icke says, it's all bollocks. The whole thing is bollocks. Everything we think, around it is. And when I first heard it, I was like, okay. But I'm starting to see more and more that a lot of these concepts involve, in a way, a point system before you can graduate to the next level, which is a very hierarchical way of looking at things. So when you move away from that point system of, I've done so much positive, or I've done so much negative, and you move away from that and you look at how hard it is for some people. When, imagine you've been born into a family that where there's abuse, and you've had to survive for for your food, and you haven't had any foundation that you meant to have as a child, and you end up being more negatively focused. You can say to yourself, well, how is that the fault of this person? So I personally feel very much like wanting to move away from negative action, positive action, but more move towards consciousness, the eternal observer, the eternal seer of who we truly are in the essence. And who we truly are in the essence is already everything. So we don't need to learn anything. We are already an expression of everything. However, we are in an environment here which is so synthetic and artificial that, of course, we interact with that artificial and synthetic environment, and very easily we will become programmed by it, and we will start acting like it. But that doesn't mean that is what we are and who we are. And I personally believe very much in this theory of that there was a prime Earth where there was a lot more parts of us expressed in wholeness and fullness, and that this prime Earth is still there, but it gained an overlay of a artificial reality. There's many viewpoints on how that happened, but I do believe that we are currently not in the original reality that we decided to first incarnate into. That was a very different type of reality, and I think that the visual spectrum only allows us to see a very, very tiny part of this reality. But if we saw beyond that, we would see exactly the limited situation that we're currently buying into, and that it's only held together by our perception, our collective perception, and that it's far, far, far wider, and that we already are far wiser, far more loving. We don't have to reach it. We don't have to reach that state. We just need to awaken and remember that that's what we already are.
Yeah, I think, I had this a lot of stuff happen through my experiences on psychedelics, because I've done like 7 years of trips, and I could get into higher states of consciousness, higher bodies, higher self level, where from higher self level, which I think was higher self level, I could see all of reality simultaneously. So it's like, you see everything on Earth as a reflection of yourself, and you know exactly why things are the way they are. And it's like, but what I was getting, because I was getting a lot of info about timelines and this whole manipulation, is basically that there is a mixture of one, which is like we are being kept in low vibration and focus on negatives through like the programming and all these other things, like the
sound. If you have low vibrational sounds that are not audible to us because of this electromagnetic field that's very limited, so we can't see, hear, smell, feel a lot of things that are happening right now, right here. I believe that there's a lot of sound frequency that is being, that we're bombarded with, that keeps us in that way of thinking, and that it's literally a matter of having a collective awakening. The more people awaken, the awakening basically activates an energy of who you are, and if that happens to multiple people in large groups, those sound waves don't stand a chance, or whatever any other manipulative system that's in place will be pushed out, will be broken.
But do you think the sound waves is like, you mean sound beyond our spectrum of hearing? Like,
yes.
So we are bombarded with something we cannot hear, but it impacts us.
It's like, how they plug in these things for mice, and
the
mice
I know.
can hear it, but we can't hear it, and it's keeping the mice. I don't want to be here.
I know. Interesting.
There's a lot of the matrix is held together by electricity, sound waves, and something done to us, I feel, that makes us not see beyond that 0.05% of the visual spectrum. So it keeps us in a very, very tiny reality, and we keep on finding excuses why this reality is there. Oh, we have to work our way up. Oh, we have to show how good we are, blah blah blah. That's all part of the manipulation, as far as I'm concerned, because it's much more simple. It's we are already it. And we just need to awaken to that en masse, and then this whole system crumbles right in front of us. It's much more simple than we tend to make it, I think.
But where did you get this information about the sound? Because I'm not sure if I ever heard this.
I've heard it from various sites. Obviously, also David Icke speaks about Saturn, the Saturn moon matrix. But I've heard multiple people speak about sound, and I always go with, when I hear something, does it resonate as truth in me? And that 100% did. You know, I thought, yeah, that makes absolute sense to me.
I just want to actually, because my insights, I was getting downloads that it's a mixture and there is control, like literally technology being used.
100%.
And, you know, I don't know if you know about this Gosia Duszak. I don't know if you ever heard about her. She has this YouTube channel called Cosmic Agency, and they claim to have like a group of these Pleiadians that are supposedly like, you know, in the orbits, whatever. But they go through like thousands of different topics, and one of the topics, a lot of stuff is really interesting and resonates. One of the topics is matching some of the stuff that David Icke talks about with moon being hollow, and they basically explain that moon is a form of a spaceship which, you know, was used by races like Andromedan races that apparently take meteorites, they make them hollow and create these like gigantic ships. And during whatever, like the time at wars 12,000 years ago, they moved that, you know, and the idea was to use moon and some kind of technology to keep, supposedly to create a prison for reptilians on Earth through technology. But then it was overturned and the technology was used to keep humans, supposedly.
Yeah, there's a lot of theories, aren't there?
Yeah. But, you know, it's kind of interesting that this is Icke talks about, you know, moon being a fake satellite, hollow, you know, control. So this is a little bit matching here. And I was also getting something about the technology being used. I'm not sure if it's from the moon, but apparently there is something to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, when people talk about the gods and everything, I reckon humanity believed in gods because they were literally walking among us. And this whole idea now of faith that there's some kind of God, I think that that's only very, very recent. I think humanity was interacting with various different architects of this reality, whether it be reptilians or the Egyptian gods, the feline species, the canine species. You know, there's a whole bunch of different god species that are shown in depictions and historical accounts. And this whole idea of an invisible and just have faith, that is very recent, I think. I think they left, you know, I think the reptilians went underground and the other gods just went through portals, you know, pyramid portals and stuff back to Sirius and Orion and etc.
Yeah, interesting. Also, another kind of want to add something to it. Recently heard this interesting theory that because of artificial light, you know, before, like, people were more aligned with circadian rhythms and going to sleep when it was getting dark and things like that.
We're going to make a film about that in January.
Okay. And apparently, like, this has a lot of impact on DMT and, you know, levels, because how the pineal gland produces DMT or something like that. So the claim was that in the past it was more active and it was bigger as well. And that's why people had more abilities to connect with spirits or other realms, because that was these natural, you know, your natural senses were more developed. And it kind of started going down and down and down. That's why we also moved away from, you know, believing in these gods and things like that, because it kind of lost the sight more and stuff.
It's weird though, because this person I was speaking to of the Monroe Institute, he basically said that the third eye and the chakra system are all used as manipulation tools. The Kundalini energy and all of that. He said that all of them are part of the manipulation. I have not looked into that yet. I have heard it before, but I was a bit like, what? And he said that all of that is connecting you to the external, when actually everything is here in the heart, like you are it already. You don't need to connect with anything of that. You just need to connect inside yourself. I thought that was very interesting, and I haven't properly looked into that.
I need to
It's but
interview
I'm
him.
always open. I don't know if that's with you, but whenever you hear something, I'm never like, yeah, right. I'm always like, okay, that's an interesting notion. I'm gonna look into that and see if that gives me any results.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this is the right way to approach this type of information, is to not be like completely fixated on some belief that you have, but always like filter new information. Maybe makes sense, maybe not, maybe add it to what you know or already.
I think at the end of the day, there's many theories, many stories, but there's only one truth instrument inside of you. And if only humanity started to like stop all the grasping and just went, what is happening inside of me? What can I activate from within? I think that would be a major step forward. And I do really worry about this whole move back to religion all of a sudden. So many people have gone get baptized again. And it's like, ooh, what a shame, because this is such an opportunity for awakening, to understand that, we are all expressions of that all that is. And to then give it away again, give that power away again. I do really, yeah, it's quite disappointing.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not familiar with a move towards religion. I thought it's the other way around.
Oh God. Okay. Yeah, it's rife.
You mean among spiritual people? Like, let's say Jesus is the savior, right?
Yeah. So spiritual people now basically renouncing spirituality and saying, oh my God, I can't believe I thought, when all along it was Jesus. All along was Jesus. And that's happening on a massive scale now.
No, this is not good. I mean, we don't even know how much of it is true. I had my encounters and I ended up with implants when I was praying to Jesus. I cannot say that it was Jesus, because maybe it was manipulation of the prayer energy, whatever. But and with these rituals, Catholic rituals like being baptized, whatever,
you're consenting all the time. You're consenting to external energies messing with you.
We did like this method I told you about. Like they do a lot of investigations into these types of things, and they said that all the Catholic rituals are contracts, negative contracts to block something
100%,
in you.
100%. I know a really cool story of one of my best friends. When he was getting christened, he was only a baby and he was going to be christened. And he said he remembered not to do that, not to have that done as a baby. And he basically hit the pastor. He hit him and apparently knocked his glasses off his face, and they broke, and they had to abandon the christening because he was not having it. And he remembers it as well. So that's fantastic, isn't it? When you come in with that, oh, no, mate, not again. No more contracts for me.
Yeah, and the baptism, I'm not sure which one, but one of them is supposedly blocking like the third eye, they put some seal. So when they do this thing on your forehead.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Somebody said recently they put a comment on one of my posts saying, oh, because I do videos now a lot of the time when I have an insight, I record the video, and someone said, oh, since I can't say verbatim what was said, but since I've been associated with David Icke, I now think I'm a guru because I put these videos out. And I was like, that's honestly the last thing that I want to emanate, because to me, when I make these videos, I don't know what your reason is, but when I make these videos, it's truly because I've had an insight and I want to share it and I want to hear how other people see it, because I feel this awakening thing is something we do together. You know, we're coming with these gems of wisdom, and when we resonate with them and we have the crossovers, it lifts us up to another level again. So that's what's so nice about it. You know, I never think I've got the answer. I always just share where I'm at in my research, and I'm listening to you now, Mike, where you're at. And you know, already a
Yeah.
few times you said something and I was like, yep, we're crossing over here. How exciting.
I mean, it's important to not take things like that personally. It's one person over there, you know. I get all
No,
sorts
I
of
don't take
times.
it personally, but it's interesting to hear, to see that a lot of people still think that kind of thing, you know, when really it's about sharing with each other.
Yeah, no, one time I had this thing where, you know, I was posting some selfies from the gym, whatever, and some guy was like, you're teaching, you know, spirituality, you're such a narcissist or whatever. And, you know, the funny thing is that because I post stuff like from the gym, whatever, like a lot of people got so inspired to join gyms. And my mom training, you know, all the neighbors is
Yeah,
running because he sees me going. And you know, this is actually doing something positive to people because it makes them
exactly.
think that I should do it as well, or whatever.
But it's the intention behind it, isn't it? What's your intention behind it?
Hmm.
Is it because you want to be like me, look at me, or is it because you're genuinely excited to share, you know,
Hmm.
this moment of, oh my God, I've got it. I need to record this and share it. And if someone goes, actually, no, you're seeing this wrong because of this and this, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe, you know, but it's that openness of mind that will get us, that will really get us awakened as a group, as a conscious, as a collective.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
me today.
It's
And
good. And I mean, the Truth Theory social media channel. I don't know what's happened there. It was quiet for a long time, and then suddenly, like I think it's a few months ago, you guys like started really prolifically posting really spot on posts. Like it's really good.
yeah, no, it's been I think with Facebook, you know, sharing memes, we had a lot of issues with censorship, and this last year things started going really well until now. Because you know the war started and I
Yeah,
started posting stuff against war, and straight away my reach just dropped 60-70%. And
really.
then they started, I got demonetized on videos on Facebook, which I didn't upload any video for 2 years. It's just like last week. And the moment the war started, I started posting something about it, and boom, I just got like notified that my page is not recommended. I hear the same thing from many people now. Like next day I got my videos demonetized, and I don't upload any videos for a long time. Like, you know, they are literally coordinated 100%. You know, you say
Oh,
something.
absolutely, 100%. But they're really good. I mean, your memes are like the best online. Do you have a team or something doing this with you?
I have a girl that works with me that we make them. Yeah.
They're flipping amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
It's good to be a meme maker.
yeah.
You know.
Well, that's definitely your thing, that's for sure.
All right. Okay, thanks. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
today.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
All right.